Hello my friends, how's it going today? What did I title this video? Was it something clickbaity, or was it just something really boring that most people wouldn't click on? Honestly, I don't know, because like most YouTubers, I think about my title later, and generally for my way of discussing things, I just kind of talk about whatever's on my mind. Today I'm here to be vulnerable and tell you about how I really feel about life. And honestly, to be vulnerable, I'm going to turn these lights away a little bit. And that's part of the video I'm going to be making here, is like, why do I use lights? Why do I even bother with having a decent camera, decent lighting? You know, why do I care what other people think of me? Obviously, I have a certain degree of unique, individuality, but at the same time, I'm not going to lay on the couch all stoned and go, yeah, man. But there were times in my life where I did that. And years ago, I made YouTube videos where I would just sit around and smoke weed and cigarettes and talk about life. So let me back up for a minute. Hi, I'm Carpo, or Josh. Joshua Orr is actually my name. For those of you who don't know, O-R-R. I'm proud of that last name because it's unique. And I'm here to kind of open up myself and explain to you some of the issues that we all have through a reflection of my own lens here on YouTube. And it was really interesting because I've had a lot of interesting synchronicities in the last couple days before I made this video. My intention was already there to make the video. Then I came across a random video in my feed from CG Kid. And CG Kid, if you don't know, is a YouTuber who helps people with, he was basically somebody who was clean and sober, and he would help other people with staying clean and sober. And it was harm reduction and learning to overcome your addictions. Long story short, he had a relapse and posted a heartfelt video, which I couldn't believe right before I was getting ready to open up in the same regard. But even stranger was then, right before I came out here, I read a comment from one of my subscribers that said, you would make a good drug and alcohol counselor or recovery counselor. It was just the strangest combination of things. Here I watched a video from a recovery counselor, basically, and then somebody telling me I would be. And I thought about that. I thought one of my desires is to help people in life. It sounds pretentious, sounds arrogant, and I don't care. I'm way past that. There were times in my life where I'd say, well, what do I have to offer, and why should I give people advice? Well, I don't know any better. And I played that game of being unsure. But I realized over the years, you have to be sure to a degree. You have to have a certain amount of assurity in your life. But I guess that's what this video is for, to kind of open up that dialogue as to what my faults are and what I've found to be shortcomings in life. I'm going to start off with my youth here. I was bullied when I was a kid. I went to several different schools. I went to at least 5 or 6 different schools before I was out of junior high. Well, before I was out of high school, I think I went to like 8 schools or something, maybe more, I don't know. It was a rough time, and I didn't really make any friends, and I was the kind of guy who, I was tall, awkward, lanky. I had a rat tail back in the 80s, and then I grew long hair, and now it's back, which is what I'm going to get to in a minute. I had problems with girls. I never really was able to talk to them, just like so many other guys, which today has led men to just become obsessed with the men's rights and whatnot. I just wanted to say briefly, get over it. All men are awkward when we're young. It doesn't matter how cool you are. There's no such thing as a Chad. Everybody feels like a weirdo inside. But, not to get off topic, I was bullied. I had horrible acne, starting in junior high all the way through high school. Really bad. And I've still got pock marks. And I couldn't grow any facial hair. It was just a weird little goatee. And now that I'm 44, I can grow a full beard. And a person who has never known my past might look at me and think, well, there's a guy who knows himself. There's a guy who's sure of himself. Perhaps not, but some people do. They're like, oh, I wish I could be as sure of myself. I'm like, I still feel awkward. I come out here to make a video, and half the time I walk away and think, no, I can't. I just don't feel it, I'm talking to the camera, but I'm also talking to at least a couple hundred people. maybe even more over time. And if I talk about certain subjects, say like kratom, I have to be in tip-top form because I'm going to get tens of thousands of views on those videos, and I don't make them very often. So the point being here, it's really weird. You know, I also lost my father at 15, so I had to be my own father figure. And that's difficult. So I didn't really have any idols. We didn't have the internet. I graduated, or would have graduated, in '94. I made it through my senior year, but I didn't have enough credits. I had to go back for like 3 to 6 credits, something like that. Never did. I'm as stubborn as hell, stubborn as they come. I've always done things my way. And it's funny because, as I was mentioning the long hair earlier, another weird comment that was kind of related to this that came last night was, pardon me, a person who I know meant well probably, but it was on one of my kratom videos actually that I'd made from, I think about a year ago. And he said, look, I know that each person wants to be unique. I'm not going to read the comment to you or go into detail, but he basically said, you know, if you want people to respect your viewpoint and listen to you, you should lose the skull in the background and the long hair. And then he went on to say, oh, but, you know, you have every right to be unique and do your own thing. And it was a pretty long comment, and I responded with an even longer comment. And then I stepped back and thought about it overnight. I was like, you know, why did I respond to that so strongly? It wasn't harsh. I don't attack people personally. I just put him in his place to say, here you are saying be yourself, but at the same time saying if you want people to listen to you, cut your hair and change your ways. And I thought, hey, I hate to say it, not to sound arrogant, but I've already got people who watch my channel, people who are interested, and people who know that I am who I am. And if you don't like it, fuck off, for lack of a better term. You know, I like my subscribers, but if people want to judge me, fuck them. You know, I'm not here to play the game. And that was kind of along the lines of this YouTube video I made the other day about YouTubers that just appeal to their subscribers to make money and nothing else. And then treat their subs like shit by saying, look at these fucking $1,000 shoes I bought. Or, you know, is completely mocking their own donors, their own, you know, contributors by showing all the stupid things that they bought with their money. And here I am, a guy who, you know, to put it bluntly, I've outlived a lot of these YouTubers who come and went, made their money, and then went into, you know, movies and whatnot. I just sat here and calmly made videos for the last 9 years. And when I started this video, I was going to say, oh, welcome to Carpo's Corner / 15 minutes of free thinking / what is it, Reality Check Monthly, which was a newspaper I was going to make in '97. So that's what, 23 years ago. I've been trying to do this forever. I want to share information, share knowledge, and to get stuff out. But honestly, I realized what it takes in order to be successful or to make, to really be noticed by a lot of people. You have to sacrifice the intimacy of discussing things on a one-on-one basis with people. 2, you're going to be judged and consistently harassed, which is fine as long as you stand up for what you believe. But 3, you have to sell out. Everyone has to sell out to some cause or another. Whether you have advertisements, that's one thing, but there's a certain a fear of having an opinion in today's world. And so I feel like if I had to cater to any particular advertising agency, if I had ads on my channel, I wouldn't be able to talk about certain subjects. And fuck that. I wouldn't even be able to say fuck that, without making it just for adults. And that's fine too, because most of my videos are for adults. But the long hair judgment triggered me because I remembered when I was a kid. And the guy who told me to cut my hair, I was just like, I thought about it. I thought, when I was about, I think I was 16, they wanted me to play baseball. People asked me to play basketball because I was 6'2", but they wanted me to play baseball, and so I joined. The first practice we went to, and I had really long hair, longer than this at the time, and I swung, and I don't remember if it was my first bat, but I'm pretty sure it was my first hit. Crack! Just fucking hit that baseball, and it went all the way up in the woods. And if I'm not mistaken, they either didn't find it or it took them a long time to find it. And I remember the coach coming and talking to me afterwards. He's like, damn, you're a good hitter, you know, we want you on the team. He's like, you got to cut off that mop, or something to that effect. Needless to say, I never went back. Just completely walked out after that day. Thought about it. I was like, you know, if people are going to judge me on my hair, fuck them. And over the years, that's changed. In baseball, there have always been people with long hair. But it was that one coach, that one douchebag, who just said, I was just like, nah. And I've always been stubborn in that way, but that's why I was triggered, because I thought about that. And it took me a while to realize that, like a day of processing. And, you know, I'm me. I'm an individual. I do my own thing. But at the same time, I'm a human being, and I want to fit in. I want to be within my community. The one thing I know about myself, and you all know this if you followed my channel I've had it for the last 9 years, and I've uploaded almost regularly, close to 4,000 videos of me talking to the camera for a long period of time. And I've made all these, I've given all these ideas, not promises, not promises, but I've said, hey, I'm going to start this new channel. I'm going to start this new idea. And I do have a couple other channels, if you're not aware. Yes, I have Carpo's World of Thoughts, and then the End of the World podcast, which I don't upload to, really, because I'm not into the controversy. I wanted to have a channel for controversy, and I was like, it just ain't my thing. You know, not for controversy's sake, mind you, but for the sake of talking about things that are controversial, that so many sensitive Sallys, as I call them, so many people who cannot handle a discussion about anything even remotely controversial. And I, for one, enjoy a good debate, a good argument. And it's not about personal gain or ego. I know who I am. I just want to get to the bottom of facts. If somebody else has another set of facts they feel strong about, I would like them to express those facts so I can understand them. And what I've found over the years is that some of the strongest held beliefs are the ones that have no evidence. Because if you have evidence for your beliefs, you don't really need to prove it. You say, go look for yourself. But other people will look for any chink in your armor to try to attack you. And I know, because like I said, after that many videos for this long, I still get really spiteful comments on some of my older videos, especially my testimonial video of Kratom. Testimonial of a long-time user. Most of them are pretty good, but I still get them once in a while. It's on my other channel. And somebody like, oh, fuck this guy, he's a fucking idiot, you know, and it's fine, I can take it. I've learned how to handle criticism, but it has no substance. And so, my point being is that I'm going to give myself credit for being able to stick it out this long and still just sit in front of the camera and bullshit. And it's one of the few things that I can stand by in my life that I've actually have pride in, that I'm like, I can still express myself, share opinions with people, and maybe it's bullshit, maybe it's not, but here I am, right? At least I'm opening up. Like I said, I don't follow through with all the things that I make, all these plans and ideas, but I'm trying to improve upon that in my own life, for my own reasons. So I don't know why I do this sometimes, and that was the big question I asked myself. Being vulnerable, I mentioned the CG kid. One of these funny aspects of this is identity politics on YouTube, and it's pretty silly, pretty ridiculous, but it goes beyond just politics. It's not politics. I'm talking about, for example, the reason I brought up CG Kid is because he felt really bad making that video about him relapsing. Why? Because he had posited himself as a clean and sober individual. And that was his position, right? And he helped other people. Well, when he had a relapse, he would have to admit that he went against everything that he was preaching. And that's very difficult. Not in a bad way. I'm saying that I give him mass credit for doing that. That's freaking awesome. But this happens not just with addicts, it happens with relapse, let's just say vegans. There was a chick a while back my wife told me about that was a hardcore vegan, had a lot of followers on whatever social media, and then all of a sudden she started eating meat. And now she's actually posting like things about how great ribs are and how meat is so great. It's she's identifying with one thing or another. It's like jumping from one extreme to another. Meanwhile, here's the rest of us normal fucking people who sit down and eat a few veggies and a little bit of meat. It's not about being extreme. You don't have to identify with a vegan or an addict or a user or a non-user. And that was kind of the point I was trying to make on CG Kid. Like I said, and maybe this was out of context, but I let him know. It was kind of a half joke. If you would have taken mushrooms in the first place, they would have told you don't need any of that shit. You know, taking all these other drugs, and he went overboard. And I realized some people, of course, have an addiction so strong, an addictive personality, that anything they take, they're going to overdo it. And then there's people like myself, for example, who I've been a moderate user of substances my whole life. And I'm done with the judgment of what other people think. I don't care. What matters is my own life. Am I happy? Am I content? And there are parts of my life that I've had to change. I've had addictions in the past that were much worse than anything like kratom or smoking weed. I mean, I've had addictions that I don't even want to talk about. So we've all been through some shit. And I've found moderation works best for me. It works the same for everything in my life. Anytime I go to an extreme, I end up failing. And of course, it's not just addicts and vegans, right? We have left and right wing with politics. People are afraid to even take one viewpoint from the other side. Even if you agree with one thing, people are afraid to open up and say, okay, well, it's so fucking black and white right now. You know what I mean? Religion has always been that way. You can't, be a Christian and accept one Jewish thought, or be a Jew and accept one Christian belief, or, it's like everybody's got their own opinion and they stick with it, right? And it's not always true, because people do change. The conspiracy world, on the last note, is probably the worst of all of them. The way people are dogmatic about addiction, about veganism, about politics, about religion, conspiracies actually take the cake, because people hang on to those more than anything. On a note, not to be insulting to conspiracy people, if that's a term, because I've been there for a long time. For like a decade of my life, I was wrapped up in every conspiracy you can imagine after reading Behold a Pale Horse by William Cooper. And every conspiracist should know that book. And if you don't, then you don't even know half of it, because a lot of it started in the 90s because of that book, the kind of resurgence. But once the internet came out, people started wrapping themselves up and wanting to believe that everything is controlled, everything is manufactured. And the reason being is simple. We don't get it. We don't understand our lives or our world, and we don't know where we came from or where we're going. And we would really, really, really like to believe that there's a captain of this ship. And I only say that to throw that note in there, that it's easy to get tied up into beliefs we can't prove. And there's a whole YouTube, community surrounding that idea. Say whatever you want to say. You don't need evidence. Life goes on. But those are identity politics. That's taking a stance and being unwilling to budge on those stances. All of the ones I mentioned. And to make the point of why I'm mentioning that, what is the one thing that they all have in common? What are we really looking for? What am I looking for here on YouTube in the same way? I'm sure you know. Community. Connection. You know how many people have emailed me or sent me messages that said, man, I just don't know anybody, that thinks like I do, and you seem to have at least some similar thoughts. I wish we could, I had a friend that was like you, and that sounds arrogant, but what I mean is in the way that somebody to talk to. And so I've had a lot of private email conversations with people, or message conversations, that people who really care about themselves, their world, and want to share, but don't have a voice. And that's what I'm kind of to come back on why I make YouTube videos. I have a voice, even with a couple hundred people. I can't believe that people listen, and that's great. And I know people don't listen to it all, and sometimes I kind of cringe at my own videos, and I don't even upload them all. I've got so many blogs and stories and books I want to share, but I just didn't, because they sound pretentious to me because I'm looking at them through my lens, right? My own personality. So anyway, we're seeking community. That is the main point. That's what everybody is looking for through religion, through politics, through the conspiracy world. You look at a flat earth conference or anything thereof. You've got people who say, right on, man, let's talk about this stuff. And really it's about connection. It's something we all need, and yet something in our modern society we just tend to neglect. People work really hard and then they have no friends, no family. They come home to an empty house and they wonder why they're depressed. You have to put yourself out there. You will always be happier if you do. And I know this as a family man. I'm always immersed in it, so I'm forced to be. But I can't imagine what it would be like to be single and have no friends. And sometimes it's our own fault. And in that case, we have to change. I know I have a lot of faults that scared off some of my friends, and they had faults that scared me off too. But I still have at least my core group of friends, as well as my family, my wife, my best friend, and my kids. So grateful to have those things. So, on the final note on that, on our identity politics, when we change our identity politics, when we change who we think we are, when we change our opinion, we feel guilty and we feel depressed. And it's something we have to overcome. When you question your own beliefs or ideas or ideals and you find out they're wrong, it should be empowering. Allow us to move on and say, now I've grown. It's all a lesson. That's how we have to view it. Controlling yourself is hard. Controlling your ideas and your thoughts, it's very difficult. But we use the tools that we are given as far as these values that we have, right? But we don't depend on them. In other words, if something comes up that makes more sense, we have to be willing to change. And I can't express this enough as being an essential tool in my own life. A lot of things I wanted to believe about the world aren't true, or at least don't have enough evidence to be true. Let me give you an example of Bigfoot and UFOs. I was a huge UFO buff, and I totally believed in Bigfoot for the longest time. Now today when I'm asked, like I had a discussion with my mom a while back, and I was saying, well, I don't believe, but I don't not believe. And I've heard other people say, well, I'm sure they exist. I'm like, but have you seen one? But no, there's all this evidence. And I say, look, you can't call me not open-minded because I say I don't believe in him. I don't believe in anything if I haven't seen it at least myself, or at least seen enough evidence. But the point being, I live in the Pacific Northwest, Bigfoot capital of the world. There's tracks that came up in the 60s or whatnot, but since then people have had trail cams up by the tens of thousands in the Northwest. There's a lot of hunters out here. And we've had trail cams up forever and nobody's captured a Bigfoot yet. Does that mean they never existed? No. Does that mean that they don't still exist? No, of course not. But the stories that come to justify it afterwards are maybe they're UFOs, maybe they came in UFOs, or they're aliens, or they can be invisible or shapeshift, whatever the excuse may be to justify our beliefs. And the reason I bring that up is because I still believe in the potential for everything. Not just Bigfoot. But I believe in UFOs much more strongly than you might believe. I've seen some weird shit. But I don't have any evidence or proof that they're extraterrestrial. Maybe they came from this planet. I don't know the details. And we humans want to draw conclusions to everything. Maybe that's why I've just sat back on this channel and not really made any specific, like, this channel's about this. Because I feel like if you do, you have to make claims, and by making those claims you have to have a lot of evidence, and what sells is controversy, arguments, and fights, and I just don't like that. So I guess in a nutshell I'm saying I appreciate all of you. I appreciate the ability to share with you people without having to feel like everybody's under a scrutiny or judgment, but that doesn't mean we can't make bold claims about what we know is right. Obviously I make political videos too. I know this is getting a lot longer than I anticipated, but I wanted to cover a few more points. Basically, it's this. I kind of follow a Buddhist philosophy, if you will, about attachment, but also the number one lesson about not being attached to things. Like I said, you can have ideas and values, but be willing to change as you have new discoveries. At the same time, you can't be attached to non-attachment. It's one of those kind of almost a Zen koan where you're like, okay, well, sometimes you have to have extremes. Even when they say balance, always have balance, well, that also means you can't always have balance, if that makes sense. I know it doesn't, but it does. So you use the tools that we have in life to the best of our ability. We never declare absolutes, meaning that we can't say, I absolutely will never touch drugs again, like CG Kid, for example, in the mention at the beginning. If you say you're never going to touch substances, then you might fail and you'd feel guilty about it, but that's okay. But making absolute claims makes it really difficult to make it through this long life. We have to say, who knows? Yeah, I quit smoking after 25 years. I haven't smoked in 5 years. But I've still told myself, I never said I'm never going to smoke again. Sometimes I've thought, well, maybe if I enjoyed the act of smoking, maybe if I'm already dying, maybe I'll start smoking. Who knows? I don't know, because I can't predict the future. And that's the thing with all of us humans. We're all trying to live this life and figure out the future and the present and just live to the best of our abilities. And opening up and being authentic and sharing your opinions is the most important thing. Being vulnerable. Because nobody can do a damn thing to you if you open up all of your thoughts. You know what I mean? I wanted to make a few more notes. One is control your mental diet. I have a problem with drinking coffee every morning. And, I wouldn't say it's a problem, but what I mean is drinking coffee, vaping, or having a few beers in the evening, smoking cannabis, all those things I still feel guilty about, even though I control them and I have my moderate dosages. It's almost like we're programmed to feel guilty about ourselves. And I think that religion capitalized well on this by, saying we're all sinners. It's one of those things we all feel in our hearts, that we've done something wrong, but usually it is because we're beating ourselves up. We're not taking care of ourselves the way we should. So the idea of being a sinner really means you feel guilty because of what you know you're not doing. And maybe it's not even our diet or our attitude, but not having enough motivation, not taking enough action. That's the way I feel. I have all these ideas and no motivation to implement them sometimes. And that's hard. So we have to control our mental diet, which means one day at a time, to quote the AA. And I was forced to go to AA when I was younger for drug treatment, on probation. I went one time, I think, or twice. Then I forged the signature the rest of the time because I couldn't stand it. It was miserable for me. But a couple of the lessons in AA, which is one day at a time, of course, the motto, is absolutely true with everything in life. And that's why a lot of it resonated. But the serenity prayer, if you know it, is God grant me the serenity. God grant me the serenity or is it the wisdom to change the things I can? No, the serenity to, God damn it, I forgot it. to accept the things I cannot change, to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There we go. And that's an important tool for all of us too, not just with drugs, with everything. The wisdom to know what's worth fighting for and what's important. And wisdom doesn't come with just, I feel it in my heart. We can feel a lot of weird things in our heart that get us in trouble. You've got to be wise about your decisions about what you attack, which means what causes you stand for, who you're willing to argue with. Crucial one, because you waste a lot of your energy arguing with idiots in this world. There are so many idiots out there. So we have to watch out for extremes, basically. It's really pretty simple. I mean, when you think about it, just be balanced and be flexible. Just like a boxer, right? Duck and move, right? Weave in and out of life's, navigate that stream. Watch out for extremes. Conquer self-pity and conquer guilt, because those are implemented, they're just impressed upon our minds. This idea of self-pity. Poor me, I'm a victim. I've had a lot of shit happen to me in my life too. don't play the victim card. It's not worth it. Everybody has problems. Some people are just able to. It doesn't mean that you have to put on a plastic smile. You have to deal with your shit. I recommend mushrooms. But anyhow, find those who appreciate you and spend time with them. You don't have to spend time with negative people. You don't have to spend time with friends who get you in trouble or cause you problems or make you feel like shit. In fact, just don't give them the time of day. If you have friends that are that way, they're not friends. Find people who appreciate you. Realize that every mistake is actually a lesson. All right? It's not the end of the world. Every mistake we make is just a boost to start over. And nobody cares or remembers your mistakes. That's one of the most valuable things I've learned. And I think not learned, but that I know that I've had reiterated by other people. Nobody gives a shit what you're doing with your life. It sounds harsh, right? But it's true. Most people don't give a fuck what you're doing. They're doing their own thing. And you might think, oh, I'm being judged by my friends or my family. If you are, fuck them. Do your own thing anyway. Do what you feel. Do what's in your heart. If you have your own community, if you have a family or friends, fuck everybody else's opinion. It really doesn't matter. There are a lot of douchebags out there, a lot of people who don't understand the world, and a lot of jealous people, a lot of people who have a lot of time to think and spend their time worrying about other people's problems. And it's not worth catering to their, shallow beliefs about life, because we're all so unique. But give people space and understand that they are unique. Another couple rules that I've found is not only does nobody care, but own up to the shit that you do wrong. Own up to your mistakes. So many people do not own up to their failures and mistakes. And not just for other people, but for your own good. I mean, look at some of the presidents we've had. Look at some of the, not politicians, movie stars, actors, Hollywood, these people who are, won't even apologize for being complete shitbags, getting in trouble for the dumbest things. Nobody in particular, just everybody in particular. It seems like the simple apology has been reduced to like some fake little show for the media. But that's the media. When it comes to your personal life, I'm just saying don't reflect that idea of the apology. Don't try to deflect on other people. Own up to your mistakes. Say, I fucked up, I'm sorry. But don't be the victim once again, where you say, I'm so sorry, I messed up. Oh, I'm a failure, I suck. Just, I'm sorry, a simple apology, We've all screwed up. And listen to the people around you, the people you love. Once you have your community, listen to them and yourself. And use your adversity for motivation. As I say, I was picked on as a kid, and, I really got over it, didn't care much about it. I always thought I had a pretty, consistently stable childhood as well as teen years and adulthood, but I realized all the shit that I've been through. I really stepped back and said, man, even with my kids, health scares and falls and births and all the crazy shit that happened to my wife and I, and my mom and I, and my dad and I, and my brother, our family, our friends, losing people, gaining people. It's been a crazy life. And so even though we shouldn't obsess on the negatives in our life, we also can't belittle or minimize the harsh sufferings that we have had. I think they are crucial to acknowledge. It's important that we're aware of that. And that we're also, if we want to interact with other people, something that we all have to learn, myself included. Learn your triggers. When people talk about triggers, it's not a liberal or conservative or political thing. Triggers are everywhere. Triggers I first learned about in drug treatment class a decade ago. And I was forced to go. But I'm glad I did, because I learned a lot. I actually studied a lot about treatment and understanding as much as we could about the mind, how addiction works, because I wanted to learn how to control myself. And the strangest thing is, here I am still